Hey friends, many people think health anxiety is just about managing our symptoms or medications and treatment options. But the reality is it's often about the future, the what ifs that keep us up at night, from potential long-term medication side effects, flares, or even worse, severe complications. It can be a lot to have on our minds from a day-to-day standpoint. So in this episode, Chris and I will explore the fears and discuss how to balance them with being okay with where we are today. So Chris, thank you for joining us. I'm excited to talk about this important topic with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure to be here with you, Karen, and I'm excited to talk about this for sure.
Yeah. Health anxiety, we have anxiety in general, right? It's
Right.
such a popular term, unfortunately,
Yeah, truly.
this day and age. But with autoimmune disease, we have a whole nother level of anxiety around our health.
Right. Yeah. It's really, I think about the way you're describing it as the compounding nature of anxiety, right? So it's not enough to just, worry about the world as it's evolving currently, but when you have health anxiety, your mind can just sort of race into all the different possibilities, all of them drastic and dire, and it can the cruel nature of it is it can actually make your health worse, right?
Yeah. And then you have anxiety about having anxiety because we
That's
know
right.
that stress can be a trigger for flares and
Mhm.
disease activity, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's funny when people will tell you if you're suffering from anxiety, well, just relax. It's like, well, how am I supposed to relax? And now you're feeling anxious about you're not relaxing properly. It's just, from my estimation and my vantage point, just part and parcel of how overstimulated we all are and how hard it is to really still ourselves and quiet ourselves enough to let rest start to undo some of the damage from anxiety.
But Chris, how do we do that? We have the stress of taking care of our health, making sure we're exercising,
Mhm.
drinking our smoothies, meditating,
Right.
doing all the things. How do we take all that and still just be okay with what we can do in any given day?
Yeah. I think it's that space in between, often called a liminal space, where you're able to best be kind to yourself, right? So you try to prepare as best as you can for the day. I make a joke. So, for example, you mentioned smoothies. I remember times when I've made my smoothie in the evening and I said, here you go, future self, because I knew that the next morning for breakfast, when I wanted that smoothie, I did not have to be like, okay, do I have enough bananas? Like, who used up all the almond milk, or where's my coconut water? I don't have to worry about those things because I know I made the smoothie the night before. I can just have the smoothie. So it's best we can prepare for the next day, prepare for the day, use a planner. I got a planner at the beginning of the year I'm very excited about. I think I mentioned it last time we talked. It's bright yellow. I'm really excited about my planner. And it allows me to sort of slow down and think, yeah, what is going on this upcoming week? And so you have at least some sort of strategy, some sort of game plan. But also, I think the other side of that space is understanding, being humble enough, being realistic enough to say, there are going to be things that happen today that are outside of my control. I did not plan for this. I couldn't have planned for this. And even if I knew it was happening, there's nothing I could do about it. Right. So, case in point, last week, I live in the city of Richmond and they ran out of water because the water treatment plant just had a malfunction. Even if I knew that, I was going to go from Monday to Saturday without water, there's only so much I could do. Could I have filled up my bathtub? Yes. Would I have been able to go and buy like a ton of water? Sure. But that doesn't remove the fact that I still have neighbors who would have had need. I still have all the different inconveniences that come with not having water flow through your pipe that still would have made this difficult. So there are certain things in your life that you just have to be, you know, humble enough to say, I can't control this. And in that, I have found a great relief and a great sense of peace in that I am not trying to solve things that are beyond my ability to solve. And there's a comfort in that, in the sense of I'm not going to drive myself into poor health trying to fix something that I do not have the tools to fix. So you have to live in that space of preparing for the what you can prepare for, but also just accepting the fact that there are some things beyond your ability to change.
That is probably one of the hardest things to accept sometimes in the moment.
Right.
Shifting from the what ifs, what can I do, what's going to happen, to
Yeah.
what can I control right now?
That's it. That's it. And I think about, it's wild to say, but Inside Out 2 may be one of the most impactful movies I've watched in the last year, solely because the character of anxiety, I just resonated with her so much in that she was at her worst, just spinning and spinning, trying to make things happen, was super productive, like hyperactive, but got nothing done. Like nothing was changing. And it just reminds me of all those times where I've had anxiety about my health and said, okay, well, I need to schedule all these things. I need to do all these different things. And at some point, I just have to calm down and remind myself, you cannot eat a whale in one bite. If you're going to take on something like a whale, it just has to be one thing at a time. And so just calming yourself in that aspect of, okay, I can't do this all today, but maybe over the next few years, we can see progress, has allowed me to relax in ways that trying to solve it all in the afternoon never has.
I understand that. I previously had a tendency I absolutely needed to get my entire to-do list done, no matter how long it took me.
Right.
I've since shifted that to, okay, I have about an hour. I'm going to get what I can done, and I'm going to move on and not worry about it.
Got to. It just becomes this terrible, terrible cascading waterfall of just regret and failure, right? Like I've had the to-do list on my phone. This is pre-Yellow Planner, y'all. The to-do list on my phone. And I would just see that list go to like 90 undone things, it's if it's January, you're seeing things from last April you still haven't accomplished. It just becomes so embarrassing and you feel like such a failure. But just to your point, allowing yourself the space to say, I'm going to rest today. I've done all the work I can do today. Tomorrow I'll try again. It's just such a healthier path. It really is.
When you do need to rest, I've found that sometimes just ripping out that page of the to-do list and reprioritizing, making a new list, some of the stuff ends up not needing to get done or takes care of itself, or
Totally.
just isn't that important.
Yes, especially that last part, Karen, because there's so many things. I imagine many of our listeners right now have things on their to-do list that 2 months from now, I promise you, will not matter. And right now, they are causing you so much stress, anxiety, raising your blood pressure. You're waking up, you're having dreams about it. And in 2 months from now, you're not going to be thinking about it at all. So how important was it truly? And just really remembering to keep the main thing the main thing. Like we have stolen from so many things that actually truly matter in our lives in pursuit of things that we won't remember next year.
And health is at the very core of that. If we don't have our health, we don't have anything.
Can't enjoy anything else. If you say family is the most important thing or wealth is the most important thing, your career, whatever it is, tell me how you're going to enjoy those things if you're not healthy. That's what I want to know.
For sure. Me too. If you got the answer, tell us.
That's right. Tell us.
Another source, especially early on, well, oftentimes still trying to navigate what are the right medications and treatments, waiting for the other shoe to drop of when is a flare going to hit? How do you work through that with this looming, there might be a serious complication in my near future?
Well, as you say that, Karen, what comes to mind immediately is that's trauma. I think of that as a form of PTSD because what we've gone through, all of us within this community, unless this was a affliction or disease disorder that you had from the beginning, it's all you've ever known. Many of us have gone through this tremendous grief in terms of we remember life before the diagnosis. And so the diagnosis was this very traumatic event where it interrupted the rhythms of what we thought our life was. And we've never been able to get back to the before. And so I understand, from what I understand of trauma, is that you are just looking at the door, waiting for the boogeyman to enter. With health, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy in that way of like you worrying so much, and maybe you're neglecting, like, going to the doctor appointments, maybe you're neglecting the medicine taking, the lifestyle changes that you needed to make. You're not getting enough sleep, you're not getting enough rest, and then your health continues to deteriorate, or worse, you're adding new problems in. So maybe you just had this one illness, but because of all the anxiety and stress that you're feeling, a new illness has come into play, a new malfunction of your body has come into play. And I just think about the importance in my life specifically of going to therapy and being able to articulate so much of this, because it's very easy to feel like no one understands what we're going through. I remember at lowest points of my lupus journey, I felt like no one had suffered more than I had. Like I felt like I had gone through the most of anybody who ever existed. And of course, that's not true. But in the time, in the worst of it, the deepest of the valley, that's what it feels like. And you need to be able to work with people who, frankly, have gone to school for this and have studied this and have thought about how to do this for a long time and have a lot of experience doing it, to journey with you so you can learn how to cope, learn how to deal, learn how to uh, live in this new normal you have, and not just feel so sentenced to disaster, because that is not what your life has to be. So I think with everything you're saying, it just makes me think about the role of trauma in all of this and how traumatized a lot of us are.
It's ironic because even though there's millions of us out there with different types of autoimmune diseases and even more with chronic illnesses,
Mhm.
it can feel so isolating.
No question.
So to your point, I too, working with a therapist and working through that trauma and those experiences can be absolutely invaluable in getting through that.
Certainly. Certainly. No doubt about it. And it's hard. And I've seen it even with running a support group now. Just people are carrying this by themselves. And it is a relief to know that others can relate to you. It's a relief to feel another person's empathy. But there's just so much of this that makes us just want to retreat and just live. Even if we live with other people, live by ourselves, and it's not ultimately a helpful thing. We need community. We weren't intended to just live in isolation.
Yeah, early on, especially, I didn't want to talk about having lupus. I just
Right.
wanted to live my life. It felt like it had already consumed too much of my time and energy.
Couldn't agree. Couldn't agree
But
more.
to your point, in talking to someone and finding communities, whether it's through support groups or online or another way, I think has been absolutely invaluable in knowing that
Mhm.
we're not alone. There's a large community and it's not easy, but we can absolutely navigate it together.
Yeah, truly, truly. Yeah, so it's really that sense of, finding a new rhythm. Like, maybe you're not able to do that physical, because part of it too, when you talk about community, is that we may have we may be experiencing the loss of communities around particular activities that we were able to do that we're no longer able to do. So let's say you were on the track team and you're no longer able to run track. That's a serious loss of community. There are certain things that only track athletes are going to understand and appreciate in conversation that someone who's outside of that world can't appreciate. And if you're no longer able to run or do the different events, you feel a particular loss. But what does it look like to have a new community around you, or for those who are in that community to still embrace you, but in a new way, right? So it's not in the way that you were embraced previously, but it's still as rich and life-giving. I think there's something to be said about the ways in which we have to evolve, and those who are we in community with, in order to better support us, need to evolve with us.
Evolving and reimagining what
Yeah.
these situations can look like. It may not look like it once was, it may not even be possible, but there's so many other ways if we just get creative and are open-minded in how we view situations. I know that's philosophical, but at the heart of it, it's just reshaping how we look at these various situations.
Totally. And indeed, it is philosophical, but there are really practical steps attached to it. Like, if you really think about how is your life structured, that seems like a very abstract question, but then you start to, look at your time and look at the calendar. Like, what are the activities that you are able to do? And what are the things that are life giving to you now? Like, there are so many things that we can enjoy if we're willing to be curious and remain curious in that and continue to be a dynamic person in spite of the predicaments that we're in. I think there's a lot of room to be surprised by joy if we're willing to receive it.
Absolutely. And at the core of evolving and adapting is really looking at your day-to-day life. We talked about prepping earlier and giving yourself as much structure as this life allows.
Yeah.
But when you set yourself up for success, you're just in a much better situation to be able to deal with all the other things that come along with this.
Certainly. Certainly. It gives you enough cushion to not be thrown overboard when life takes a left, because it's going to take a left.
Yeah, we keep hitting on balance. So this reminds me of a source of worry and anxiety for people is striving towards living perfectly healthy.
Yes.
You see these people
Mhm.
are eating their salads, drinking their smoothies, they're working out 6, 7 days a week, they're meditating, they're journaling, they're doing all the things.
Mhm.
And then I look at where I'm at and I'm like, oh, shoot, I'm not living up to that expectation. And you have said comparison is the thief of all joy.
It is. It is.
How do we manage this? I don't know if it's guilt for not doing more
Mhm.
or whatever it is. How do we view taking care of ourselves and our health, regardless of where we see ourselves on that kind of health and wellness spectrum?
Well, I think that's sort of like the gift and curse of social media, for example, right? Is that the gift is that I can glean from the examples that people are posting, right? So if I want to watch someone's workout routine or like get ready with me or watch them prepare meals, I'm able to do that. But to your point, the next reaction is I'm not living up to this highlight reel I just watched, right? Like these people have perfect bodies and perfect schedules and perfect lives. And I'm just like, man, I am failing all around, right? But compare that to when you do real life with people, right? So if you are with people on a day-to-day basis, maybe there's someone in your life who, college athlete, or they served in the military, or they have a real discipline about themselves when it comes to taking care of their bodies. What does it look like for you to sort of like, do life with them? And there's something that you have to offer that they, are interested in. So it's not just like you just becoming a whole apprentice for them, but really just, doing life where, there are things you're teaching them and there's things that they're teaching you. Both of you are going to see that there is no perfection in this journey, right? So someone could say, "Oh wow, Karen, you're so brilliant. Like I want to learn everything from you." They're gonna see there's days where you're like, you know what? I can't think of anything today. Come back tomorrow. We'll try again. They may say, "Oh, Chris, I like how you speak. I want to da da da." And there may be times when they hear me talk and like, "Man, I don't know what he was trying to say. That didn't make any sense." Because if you're with me all the time and not just looking at someone's highlight reel on social media, like social media more often than not is not going to show you, that person's lowest moments. They're not going to show you the times that that person was mediocre or just okay. It's going to show you in a particular way that makes you seem close to perfect. And I think that if we're comparing ourselves to these well manufactured, coiffed illustrations of ourselves rather than doing organic life with each other, we're always going to feel jealous. We're always going to feel inadequate. We're always going to feel like we're not doing enough, because real life isn't, this linear, perfectly manicured experience. It's bumpy. it's contradictory. There are things that just don't make sense, but that's part of the chaos that lives within the beauty of life.
Shifting that, getting curious and
Yeah.
getting deeper. We really are just seeing the highlight reels, and there's so much more of a backstory than what's up front.
Yeah, totally, totally, totally. But I love that you talk about being curious because there was this scene in Ted Lasso. I really appreciate that show,
Me
and
too.
it's such a perfect show. And Ted is playing billiards against like the evil owner of a rival club, and he says, "You know what? The problem is you weren't curious because I don't want to spoil the whole episode, but he thinks that he can beat Ted in billiards, but Ted grew up playing billiards all the time with his dad, so he's throwing darts and just hitting bullseyes every single time. And there's something about the sort of openness we need to have with each other. Like I don't think it's right. And I know that our implicit biases train us to be this way, but it's not enough. Like we can't be satisfied by just seeing one another and then saying, okay, they fit into this category in my mind. I now know exactly everything I need to know about them just on seeing them for a split second. Be curious, ask questions, I keep saying do life, but it's really the slowness of it all that I'm trying to promote. That we can't sort of microwave the experience with each other where I'm just gonna talk to you and get everything I need and then close the book on you. But no, it's doing life with the person that allows you to slow down just enough to learn those details, those intricacies, those unique things that make you you. And I think if we're rushing through everything, just trying to get the solution without appreciating the journey, we'll miss out on the true quality of life.
We need to move from the microwave to the slow cooker.
Slow cooker. That's right. Don't even come. This is gonna be in there for 8 hours. Don't even come back. Go get a snack. It's not ready.
For sure, that is going to be even more critical as we go forward. I'm seeing these social avatars that are looking more and more real. It's going to be even harder to differentiate what's real, surface level, and
Oh
truly
goodness.
authentic out there.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, the AI is getting smarter and smarter every day, and giving people the sort of experiences. If we think about the role that human influencers play, right, to sort of serve as these paragons of this is what an athlete looks like, this is what a celebrity looks like, this is what a musician is. How much more can someone create that manufactured life with someone who's not even alive, right? Like an algorithm, a code, like something that's smart and can pick up on the tendencies. Oh, they like to see people who are chilling in Santorini, like they like all of these different ways that they can put it together. I think we're going to need to be more discerning and more aware of what's being sort of like sold to us to manipulate us and what's being offered to us to help us grow.
All of this, Chris, there's many forms of anxiety and challenges that come with
Mhm.
these diseases. So much internal strength and navigating these diseases behind the scenes. What is one last words of encouragement or insights that you've learned on your experience about garnering that resilience and invisible strength to deal with the
Yeah, I think particularly when you think about invisible strength, it requires you to be kind to yourself when we are only seeing ourselves because of our deficits. So I'm not strong enough. I'm not healthy enough. I'm not where I want to be in life. If we only see ourselves as our deficits, it's really hard for us to mature and nurture our strengths. All of us have invisible strengths that need, much like a plant needs water and sunlight, they need that sort of tender care to make sure that we're living into our full potential. And if we're not kind to ourselves, we'll rob ourselves of that potential because we won't see the potential as something worth nurturing. I think we have a responsibility to ourselves and to the world that will receive our gifts to really slow down enough to be kind to ourselves and extend that kindness to others so that that invisible strength can fully mature.
incredible. Chris, Thank you for being here. I would encourage our audience to please share this episode with anyone who could use a reminder of their incredible invisible strength. And as Chris said, be kind out there and be kind to yourself. Thank you and take care. Thanks, Chris.
Bro, thank you.